great, great people. Many lives over such a long period of time have been lost. I want to thank our wounded warriors, people that are still bearing pain and all of the problems that they've had to go.
Well, that was Donald Trump speaking some time ago about pulling out of Afghanistan, and he's now followed through with that. In the build-up to his presidency, he was portraying himself as the anti-war president, somebody that would be non-interventionist. And funny enough, the Taliban have now endorsed him. Now that is not a very good advert for the president if you are not a fan of the Taliban, but doesn't it just illustrate that this whole almost 2 decades of war in Afghanistan was completely pointless, and that the Taliban were ready to surrender almost 20 years ago? But they are apparently endorsing him. Let's see what else Donald Trump has been saying this week.
Raising senior citizens the care, support, and respect that you deserve, and you understand that. We've worked together for a long time. As president, I'm deeply aware that America's 54 million seniors have borne the heaviest burden of the China virus. Many older Americans have endured months of isolation, missing weddings, births, graduations, church and family reunions. You know that very well. You know it all too well.
Right. So he's trying to appeal to the older generation and saying the senior citizens have borne the brunt of the China virus. He's always calling it the China virus. Nice bit of anti-China propaganda. And he's trying to appeal to the older voters. Maybe he thinks that they are all so forgetful that they won't remember that he used images of old people to mock sleepy Joe Biden this week when he said Biden for resident of the old people's home, the old folks' home there. There's sleepy Joe Biden in a wheelchair. I mean, that's a little bit derogatory, isn't it? That's a little bit disrespectful. If you were using another group of people to mock your opponent and then appealing to them for support in the same week, you'd be regarded as a little bit of a hypocrite, wouldn't you? I think so. By the way, you can get involved this evening. We've opened the phone lines back up if you want to get in touch. The number is on the screen there. It is, I don't even remember what it is, 07, it should be in the description, and we've got a call already, in fact. First time caller for a while. Who's this? Please turn your TV down or phone or whatever you're calling us on. Hello, caller, you've got a very bad line, but you are live on Lessons for Life. You've got a very bad signal.
Can you hear me?
Just about, but you've got bad signal. Make your point. Feel free to give the phone number a try, but we're not having much luck there. Let's have a little bit more from Donald J. Trump.
We turn to God for healing and strength.
Yeah. Turning to God for healing and strength. And here's the article from the Al-Quds Post. The Taliban officially endorse Trump's election. Yeah, Trump has had a little bit of bad luck with the religious leaders in America, certainly. A lot of the church leaders are actually saying, despite the sanctity of life, despite the debate over freedom of choice versus the rights to have an abortion, they're actually endorsing sleepy Joe Biden. But it would seem the religious folk in Afghanistan are officially endorsing Trump's re-election, and I'm sure that's as the lesser of two evils. But someone's given the number a try. I wonder, can you hear us? Who's this?
That's your usual caller.
Welcome back, Matt. That's a much better line. Thank you. Are you hearing me?
Yeah,
Good
hearing
man.
you.
Good man. How do you feel about the Taliban officially endorsing Donald Trump's election?
It shows basically, well, he's the peacemaker.
Is he? He's
Well,
a peacemaker.
Blessed
are the peacemakers. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So first of all, I hope Roberto Ramos, you're watching. Roberta, I hope you're watching. Anyway,
we're doing shout outs now, yeah? It's a shout out show. No problem.
No, I don't usually shout out, but this one was I'm grilling someone. But but yeah, and big up Smelly as well. Not joking. No more shout outs. I'm not joking. But going back to Trump, I think this is all a start, in my opinion. I mean, it's a popularity contest. Now he was on like the TV show, the American version of Apprentice. Then he started doing like little bits in here and there. So obviously, in my opinion, it's all like a Hollywood show. So this is my opinion, but I could be wrong. Like, it could serious talks, like he could be actually, but he's a business-minded man. So people are saying he's doing this for the economy, he's doing that, but I don't know.
Well, the biggest business in Afghanistan was heroin, wasn't it? Before the Taliban got there, the biggest business in Afghanistan was heroin.
Who was arming who? In the Taliban's were.
So are we back to square one now? It seems like the war in Afghanistan might as well never have happened. Trump may still be the president in a month's time, although that seems unlikely. The Taliban are still in power in Afghanistan. So what the hell was that all about? Why did they bother invading Afghanistan? And that was a war started by the Republican Party, continued by the Democrat Party, and now being rounded off and finished by the Republican Party, but by someone from outside the mainstream of politics.
Basically, the empires are cartel. Like, if they're not running weapons, they're trading in like drugs. And in Afghanistan, there's good, say, from Afghan hash or whatever, or opium even, like, which is a major drug. But again, it's like it goes back to the Pablo Escobar situation, or in the CIA, who was helping to try and get coke into the US. So we see this from time to time. So even wherever there's resource for them to gain, they will be there or have a reason to be there, or to claim a reason to be there, to obviously to take in some of the resources of other countries. Now, obviously, Afghanistan is a good producer of the weathering, apparently good for not just apparently they call it Afghani hash, and which is very, very famous, and also opium, which we all know get our main drugs, painkillers.
That's right. Mac, we've got other calls trying to come through. We will
no worries, bro.
hear from you again. Thank you. Superb. That's Mac, regular contributor on this channel, and he makes the point about drugs and opium. And I'm not trying to say that Donald Trump is some kind of peace president. He's making peace with the Taliban whilst making enemies elsewhere. And funny enough, he's ripped up the Iran deal, so he's being no friend of Iran, if he's a friend of the Taliban, who are still in power and are apparently endorsing him after all this time. It seems that we're back to square one, and maybe he wants America to have an ally who are a rival to Iran. In the chat, Roberta V. Ramos is saying, hello, Roberta, Mac's friend, why politics is mostly topic in here since I started watching. Maybe one day I could join, but we would be chatting about some different topics, all of us. Well, whatever topic you want to bring to the table on a Friday night, you're absolutely welcome. And 33X is bringing the topic of Brexit, which was kind of swept under the rugs. Hada Zaman is asking me why I'm lying. That is interesting, and is explaining to me that the Taliban said it's fake news. Now, it's a very rude accusation, Hada Zaman, to say that somebody's lying, because if I'm repeating what someone else has said and I got it from the Al-Quds Post, then I'm not really lying, am I? But if you know better and you would like to correct the latest on this story, then the number is on the screen. You can give us a call and explain what's really happening, as you seem to know so much about it. I've got Sleepy Joe Biden on the screen there. He is the other competitor in this two-horse race for the presidency of the United States, and he's absolutely hot favourite to win at the moment. Let's see if he pulls the heartstrings with this little photo opportunity. And look what he does with his badge. It's going to pull your heartstrings. Wow, doesn't that little boy feel special? And he was saying to them, you know who I am, right? I was with Barack Obama, and I was his vice president. So yeah, sort of a heartwarming moment, that, isn't it? Giving away his badge to a little boy. And that little boy probably feels special because that must be the only boy or girl that Joe Biden's ever given his badge to. Let's have a look. Oh no, wait. Oh no, this is 10 years ago. What? He must give away a badge a day. Oh, look. She felt special that day. Oldest trick in the book. And there's another endorsement. So not only has the Taliban endorsed Donald Trump, and why wouldn't they if he's pulling out of their country, but someone in the chat thinks they know better than that. I wonder if our friend is a fan of the Taliban. Hada Zaman, are you upset about this because you like the Taliban or because you like Donald Trump? And Pat Riot is saying great odds on Biden for 2040. Oh, God. Hey, no one knows how long any of us will live. But if Joe Biden does become the next president of the United States, then he will be the oldest man ever to have been inaugurated, breaking Donald Trump's record. We did have someone trying to get through. If you're trying to get through on the phone line, give it a go and we'll get you on the air. And we've got someone now, let's see, it may or may not be a good quality. Are you there, caller?
Hello?
Hello, give us your point. The line's not superb, but what's your take on all of this?
Hi, I just wanted to say that Mr. Trump, why would a billionaire even want to become president? It makes no sense to me. The guy's filthy rich. He's 74 years old or so. He should be enjoying his life up and down the golf courses and the fabulous hotels that he has all around the world. Why is he wasting, or spending, should I say, his time out there with all this stuff at that age? And regarding Afghanistan, you mentioned the relationship that the Taliban has. The Taliban, may I say, was in an excellent position with the former, well, not Obama, but before him, we had Bush. And when Bush was governor, he actually invited them over to Texas, and they were there. The Taliban were there, invited by Bush, and there's a particular video. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I saw it in 9/11
Bush Senior
Fahrenheit,
or George W?
George W. No, Junior. Yeah,
Senior.
Junior.
George W. Bush is Junior, the younger one.
Sorry, not Senior, Junior.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah, George W. Bush.
Yeah, so on 9/11 Fahrenheit, and the film by Michael Moore, and I'm sure it's a clip on YouTube. Anyone can watch it. The Taliban is in Texas.
I remember it, and he says, "I feel very sorry for your husband." They made a sexist remark to a woman, if I recall.
Absolutely, but why were the Taliban there in the first place?
Why? You tell me. Why were the Taliban there?
Well, no one can deny that. Without going into the whole issue and me attempting to elucidate, I think everyone will agree that they must have had a good relationship with George W. And that's why they came. At the very least, if we can't agree on anything else, we can at least agree that they must have had an excellent relationship. And that's why they were invited, or even that's why they came there.
Well, I think they had a good relationship with Bush Senior, and then Bush Junior stabbed them in the back, didn't he? When he accused them of harbouring Osama bin Laden, when really Osama bin Laden, or Tim Osman, as some people call him, was actually sent there to do a job. And when they'd finished with him, they did away with him.
Yeah, well, that's we're very easily going into the conspiracy theory side of things.
You know who invented that phrase? The same people that invented Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, but I would like to add.
Yeah.
At the 10-year anniversary of the war, if I can call it war on terror, I was going to say, but I should just call it war on the Taliban, maybe. The BBC Two and the actual BBC had an anniversary program, and on it, and I heard you mention earlier on your show regarding the heroin that is being sold out there, or being made or manufactured, or whatever the term is, opium and so on. President Karzai himself is stating that I could have stopped completely the entire production of opium in the opium fields, but I didn't want to upset the U.S., the government, or the Western governments. These are his words. So, I mean, is something bigger than what we know? We hear Minister Louis Farrakhan saying that the black communities don't make heroin. They don't make cocaine. It comes from abroad. Is something going on? Is it being shifted out there? Are people on heroin in the black community or BAME community because this is allowed to come here? Because I don't know. I've never heard of a heroin factory in England.
No, nor have I. It is imported, and I think that apparently a lot of the drugs on the street at the moment are very unclean because they've been cut with other items, because lockdown and the Chinese virus, as Trump calls it, has made everything impossible to import. In the chat, PK was making a good point about Trump not being part of the old guard. And yeah, as much as he's a Republican, And there's a clip of him saying years ago, if I were to run for office, it would be in the Republican Party because their voters are easy to manipulate, i.e. stupid. So lo and behold, he has done it. But he's not a neocon in the style of a George Bush, whether you want it to be senior or junior. And if you look at the previous 5 presidents, you know, you've had 2 Bushes, a Clinton, we nearly had another Clinton. It's almost 2 family rule. And we're quite critical of the countries that have 1 family rule, but 2 family rule is almost as bad. And PK is saying that opium is used in medicine. That's correct. Good point, fair point. And a lot of people are hooked on legal medicine, aren't they? There's an addiction issue with that as well. Codeine, I think, is a derivative of opium. These are all opioids. And Bill Fence is saying Afghanistan's opium was 90% of the world's, right? Probably. And not only do the African American community in America suffer with their streets being flooded with drugs, next door, Iran, which has one of the highest rates of the death penalty in the world, executing people, the majority of those, or a vast number of those executions, are from drug trafficking offences because they're so desperate to stop the heroin pandemic on their streets. And PK is mentioning another drug that I think is maybe a derivative, tramadol. Hedwig is mentioning oxycodone. So yeah, so many people are hooked on these forms of heroin. It's not just the street value of the drug, but it's big pharma as well.
Well, the big pharma, you know, if it's for medicine purpose, they say if you have Parkinson's, then smoking cannabis or having cannabis cakes. And one of the most popular pranksters on YouTube, Own Age Pranks, and he has a video saying, or titled Losing My Best Friend. And naturally everyone thinks that it's the kind of young man, but it ends up being his granddad, who was well in his 90s, I assume. He says that when my granddad was suffering with everything, his back would ache, his arms would ache, Parkinson's, everything, and he would get him cake with wheat cake, and then wheat cake would be
Caller, hold the line, because we might have a newcomer. Who's this?
Hi, it's PK.
Superb. Is it PK?
It is, yeah.
Brilliant,
PK.
mate. Good to have you back on the phone. We've gone back to phone lines for now.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the airwaves.
Yeah, great conversation.
Yeah, we've sort of stumbled into the drugs conversation, and I think it is an interesting one.
Well,
what's your take on all this?
I've got personal experience of the opioid, the synthetic opioids, and also taking heroin, which was given to me not on the street type of thing, but medical use.
Right.
I had a very, very severe injury in my leg. I basically snapped the leg in half backwards at the knee. As you can imagine, that would be quite painful. I had to have reconstructive knee surgery, ACLs all redone and everything like that. So, of course, I had to go under a general anaesthetic.
Yeah.
And when I came out of the general anaesthetic, I was given... I remember I come out from like the general anaesthetic, and I was in absolute pain, and I just made noise, and I heard a voice, and it was obviously the surgeon saying, "Yeah, he's in pain. Give him some morphine." Now, morphine it's basically heroin. It's a clinical version of heroin, you know, but a more obviously refined, safer product than any street drug would be. Yeah. And I can tell you, within out of the general anaesthetic, after 1 minute later, I was awake, and and once that stuff was put into me through my vein in my arm, it was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable warm feeling that just surged through, and the pain was gone.
Wow.
And here's the weird thing: I can understand why people become addicted. It's a beautiful
So
it's a
you've,
beautiful feeling.
in a medical context, had that hit,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, I have. But not only after that, throughout the evening, after my operation, because it was quite obviously intrusive, that operation. I had to shave bits of my bone to make it good, and all sorts of stuff going on, and bolts going in.
Oh, God.
Grub screws drilled into my shin and stuff to make the new ACL connections, which they took part of my hamstring to make. So you can imagine is they've really chopped me about, let's say. So what they did throughout the evening was they kept giving me like liquid morphine, the oral form.
Okay.
Every few hours, couple of hours, they would come in, wake me up, and give me some more, and give me some codeine as well. And the funny thing is, the next morning, because they get you out of hospital pretty quick, they get me on the crutches. I'm up and down the corridor. They're testing me out on my new crutches, taking them for a road test.
Yeah.
There I am, whizzing up and down the corridor, up and down stairs. Absolutely brilliant. But all they gave me to take home was a couple of paracetamol.
Oh,
so,
wow.
you can imagine what happened. When the morphine wore off. And when it wore off, right, it's quite funny because when I went up to go to the toilet, hobble on my crutches, all the blood rushed down to the knee, obviously, and the pain, I'd never felt pain like it. It was more painful than when I bloody snapped my leg.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So anyway, here's leading on from that to the other side of the synthetic heroin, which is the pills. I was with my friend, took me to the doctors. Doctor looks up, what's wrong with you? He sees I'm in a wheelchair. He sees my leg. He goes, oh, okay. Yeah. Just writes a prescription. I get this massive box of tramadol. Right, which I've never took before.
And is this a heroin derivative again?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, basically any of the codeines, any of the ines. Or
anything ends in "ine" seems to come from it, right? And I've even heard people they get hold of certain painkillers and they do some kind of chemical process on it and boil it up and they extract the codeine element from whatever this pill is.
No, Sudafed used to have a product in it. But that was methamphetamine.
Okay.
That's a slightly different thing. It's the big problem in America, not really a problem here.
Okay.
But and I think that active ingredient in Sudafed has now been removed over here. Anyway.
Okay. Good.
But with the pills that the doctor prescribed me, I can tell you they're very addictive because I had addictions. I had an addiction to them, but it was an addiction which I could manage, but I had no choice. I was actually prescribed them before my operation, and after my operation. Now that's right, if I recall correctly. But it was hard to come off them because they're so nice. It's really hard to explain.
That's why.
Nice.
That's a good way of putting it. They're so nice.
They are nice. Yeah, but they're nice for a reason because otherwise the pain that you're in is so excruciating. Life would be unbearable.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
No,
I mean,
it does.
And it's not. I'm not addicted in any way now. I don't because they're prescription only. I wouldn't know where. You'd have to go to the doctor, and you'd have to have a bloody good reason to get them. Either your arm would have to be broken or something. I don't know, but you couldn't just go into a chemist and buy anything equivalent to that. Thank God, because I don't know if in America that's the case. Whether you can just go into shops and buy them.
In America, apparently they have adverts for medicine because they are not an NHS like we are.
Yeah. Okay.
They promote certain drugs, and you can buy this over the counter. So it's slightly
over
different.
The counter.
I believe so, but I wonder.
But in America, go on.
I was going to say, I wonder, have we stumbled upon something here? The vast use of these opioids and the control of where they come from, whereas cannabis is not even legal, and although used in medicinal settings, not as much. I don't think cannabis gets prescribed nearly as much as these opioid heroin extracts that you're talking about.
Very good very good point you raised. I know for a fact that there's more people, and you can Google this. Any of the listeners can Google this. There's more housewives and people like that, and people addicted to painkillers than there are people addicted to illegal drugs.
Yeah.
It's a fact. In America, it's a massive, massive problem. And one of the things is these opioid type drugs, they really do they put you out of it.
Yeah.
They really do. So one, they help you, they stop you from thinking about your problems. They stop any pain, physical pain, and they also make you a bit spaced out, so you're not conscious of the real problems in your life. So people somehow get them to use when they don't have a physical ailment to start with, if that makes sense, but a mental problem that they can't handle, and these things get you out of it so you don't deal with it, much like perhaps Valium and other things, relaxants would. With the cannabis thing, I've actually used cannabis before for bad back.
Right.
It was a case of I put my back out at work, and it was very, very painful. It wasn't a slip disc, but I think it was more muscular. And a mate of mine said, "Oh, I've got some can of dope," he called it, and I said, "Oh yeah, I know, I've heard of all that." And he said, "Well, try some of this." And I smoked cigarettes. It wasn't a problem for me to smoke one. And I tell you what, my back, I couldn't believe it. As soon as I smoked it, the back pain had gone. So
and that's
definitely
much less addictive than any heroin type alternative.
Oh my God! I mean, I would say a couple of things. I know that the super skunks and stuff can cause problems because I've had friends that have gone a bit mental from smoking too much of that stuff. But I would think, like, it's probably less worse than being a heroin addict.
I would have thought so. But
I think that with the dope, it's more psychological than physical. I don't think anything bad happens to you if you were an addict and you were to stop, as opposed to alcohol addiction. You can't just stop. Heroin addiction, you can't just stop.
That's interesting.
I don't know about the
medical
pills the heroin pills. We've been talking about. I don't know what happens if you just stop with those.
Seek advice. PK, look, thank you so much for your contribution, mate. This has gone down a road that I'm really glad we've touched upon. I think we've touched upon something.
I mean, I think it's also something more common than people realise. People being injured in sports or accidents, and then they prescribe stuff, and it does help them through it, but it can also be difficult coming off that. So anyway, thanks very much for having me on again.
Lovely.
I should continue to listen to the show.
Catch you in the chat. Superb. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate.
Nice one. Yeah, that's a really good point PK made. I know we've gone off a little bit onto drugs, but as PK said, if you stop alcohol cold turkey, as Bill Fencer said in the chat, you can actually have a very adverse reaction, and you need medical help in order to do so. I'm not sure about the case with the heroin derivatives, but with cannabis, as negative as the effects can be of abusing any drug, I don't think it harms you physically as much as others. Pat Riot is saying good call. Yes, it was a good call. We always get a good call from PK. But of course, the problem linked with long-term cannabis abuse would apparently be psychosis. Now that psychosis, I'm guessing, is psychological, so it's something in the mind, but it would obviously have been triggered by something physical, wouldn't it? Maybe more studies need to be done on the long-term negative effects of these drugs, but I definitely think the physical painkillers, especially if people are having a problem in their life that is an emotional problem, or you could even say spiritual, and they turn to a physical answer like heroin or another opioid just to get that good feeling, that's like turning a switch on in your brain that says you'll feel okay when really you're not okay yet and you need to heal. Let's have a look at more from Donald J. Trump. What's he saying?
To distribute a safe and effective vaccine before the end of the year, and we're really doing it even sooner than that. You see what's going on. We have the vaccines getting ready to go.
Yes, the vaccine is getting ready to go, and this is another element of big pharma. And funny enough, it's the Russians who have got there first, and they even called their vaccine Sputnik. So there's a great propaganda victory for the Russians. And in a country with a state-funded national health service like in the UK, I've never quite understood how big pharma could be such an industry. If the government is paying for it, you can't exactly advertise it. It's not going to be as commercialized as it might be in somewhere like America. But on the vaccine issue, here's Donald Trump praising the vaccine, saying that he's got hold of it so quickly, and don't worry, the vaccine's coming out, and then there's going to be another one soon after that. Some of the people on the right in America, the hardcore Trump supporters, would be what you call vaccine skeptics or anti-vax. And Donald Trump was accused of being anti-vaccine in the past. He might even have been proud of it. Let's have a look at a clip of him 5 years ago and contrast it with what he said now, praising the vaccine. Here he is 5 years.
Just the other day, 2 years old, 2.5 years old, a beautiful child, went to have the vaccine and came back, and a week later got a tremendous fever, got very, very sick, now is autistic.
Okay. So that's Trump almost peddling the debunked theory that vaccines are somehow related to autism. Now, what's happened in those 5 years that he's now praising the vaccine for the Chinese virus, as he calls it? Now, there's a number of ways that we could look at this. You could say, well, maybe he's not anti-vaccine in general. And that's the trouble with this sort of light switch thinking, where it's everything's either yes or no, off or on. All vaccines are bad, and then all vaccines are good. I don't think there are any vaccines that are linked to autism. That was completely debunked and disproven, and it turned out to be someone who wanted to patent a different vaccine, and he was trying to portray the double vaccine that was being administered as being at fault for autism, so that he could then offer a different vaccine. So even though that case was dismissed, it doesn't mean that maybe there are some good vaccines and some bad vaccines. They can't all be the same, can they? Surely if one of them's being made by Russia and the other one's being created in Oxford University, they're going to be different anyway, right? So it's a little bit short-sighted to just say all vaccines are good, all vaccines are bad. But if Trump was of the opinion that all vaccines were bad, and that is the opinion of some, then he certainly changed his tune, hasn't he? And here's the picture that Trump put together in order to mock Joe Biden. A nice bit of propaganda. I can't believe we've still got propaganda posters in the run-up to elections. It's unbelievable.
In line for the vaccine. Seniors will be the first in line for the vaccine. Seniors will be the first in line for the vaccine.
Yeah. Seniors will be in line for the vaccine. So the man that used the image of seniors to mock his opponent is now appealing to the seniors for their vote. The man that was skeptical of vaccines is now trying to offer you a vaccine and say that it's a good thing and that's a reason that you should vote for him. The man that said if he ran for president, it would probably be as a Republican because those voters are stupid enough to be manipulated. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not saying you should vote for Joe Biden. Personally, I'm not American. I'm a citizen of the world and I want a safer world. And if we look throughout history, ironically, the majority of the wars that America have launched against other countries, America has bombed so many countries since the end of the Second World War. The majority of these wars were launched by presidents who were from the Democrat Party. And I say that ironically because I have grown up on the left and seen the left as the side that would stand up for the oppressed, that wouldn't become the oppressor. But we have to look at the nature of the beast. And America, by its very nature, by the fact that it is a world superpower, and from the Second World War onwards, the only war that you would want them to be involved in. And although they arrived late, they arrived on the side of good, on the right side of history. But since that time, America has turned into a war machine and launched aggressive wars against this invisible enemy of the Soviet Union. But the Soviet Union is gone, and now there's a different invisible enemy. And for a time, it was the war on terror, which took the form of apparently a war against radical Islam. But very quickly, when those radicals began attacking America's enemies, they became the friends again. And it doesn't surprise me that the Taliban are friends again with an American president. I just wish that there was a third way in America. I'm not American, but gosh, doesn't America need an anti-war party? There's no independent candidates this time around that are getting any kind of attention. Kanye West was running, and perhaps that was some kind of a backward attempt at helping Donald Trump, because in America, partisan politics and identity politics tends to mean that black people generally, more often than not, will vote Democrat. Same with the Latino and Hispanic community. And I actually saw Jorge Masvidal, the great UFC fighter. That's one of Mac's favorite fighters, actually. The winner of the BMF belt. And he was saying, look, as Latinos, we should not let the Democrat Party feel like they don't have to work for our vote, like they're just going to get our vote no matter what. And that was controversial. But every community and every locality needs to make sure that their representatives, one, are working for them at home and for the greater good of the country at large. And it can be opposite. Sometimes you'll have someone like Donald Trump, as terrible as he is at home, as awful a person he might be, I don't know, you're going to tell me he's racist, he's sexist, he's all the rest of it. Yeah, the guy's a billionaire businessman. Generally, you don't become one for your great morality, but when he went head to head with Hillary Clinton and another establishment war hawk, there was no doubt that the anti-war vote was with Donald Trump. Now, he perpetuated and continued some of the wars. Other wars, I mean, he attacked Syria after they begged him and manipulated him and propagandized the plot to bomb Syria. And he gave in, very sadly. But 4 years ago, I think Donald Trump got the anti-war vote because even if he didn't meant it, he said, I will pull out of these wars. And 20 years too late, he is pulling out of Afghanistan. And pains me to say it, but that's a good thing. But it's it's kind of like the lesser of many, many, many evils. But we have to look at the nature of the beast. And America, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican at the helm, attacks other countries because that is what empires do. This is a modern empire. And if you've been to any of the Julian Assange rallies, or you've been to the events such as Empire on Trial, which is the idea that Julian Assange was speaking out against empire. And that's why he's languishing in prison and facing extradition, because he spoke out against empire. He spoke out against the idea of going to war and conquering someone else's land. And he spoke out against anyone who did that. And Donald Trump liked it when he exposed Hillary Clinton, but he didn't like it when he got to power. And it's very different, isn't it? What you say on your way up the ladder and what you say when you've got to the top. And I compared it before to like Peter denying Christ. He said, I don't know much about WikiLeaks. So good luck to the Americans going to the polls. Many of them have gone to the polls already. It's been postal voting system. I'm sure that whatever happens, well, look, this is what will happen. This is what is very likely to happen. Joe Biden will win a landslide victory, and many of the votes have already been cast via postal ballot, and Donald Trump is going to question it. Will he be gracious enough to step down? And if he did, will the press leave him alone? I've been focusing a lot on the comments on the videos from Donald Trump, and you see the Trump supporters complaining about the liberal press and saying, they are always slating Trump and the media is so biased, it's anti-Trump. And someone said, I can't wait for the end of the election when the press will finally leave Trump alone. But I wonder, will they? Because as PK said earlier on, this has become it's like a show. This is show business. And I think even when when Sleepy Joe Biden has done his pledge and is inaugurated, and even when he's into his first 50 days in office, I am sure that negative stories about Donald J. Trump will still be doing the rounds. We'll still be selling newspapers. Not that we sell newspapers anymore, it's all about clicks. But I'm sure the Washington Post will still be running negative stories about Donald Trump, because that's what sells. Now, presumably it sells because that's what people want. And it's hard to gauge where the chicken and the egg are in all this. People say, oh, we're controlled by the media. The media are controlling your mind. But the media, whoever the media is, I mean, you can become the media if you want. You can do what I'm doing and just be another form of alternative media. But the media, like the pharmaceutical industry, like the weapons industry, is an industry, and it sells by giving people what they want. So if the media are critical of Trump, presumably that's what people want to hear. It can't be the other way, can it? It can't be that people hate Trump because the media are telling them. Surely the media are giving people what they want. They are publishing the stories that will sell. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get Joe Biden as president. He looks set to break the records, and we'll have again the oldest man. There's never been a woman. Nearly was with Hillary Clinton, but we'll have the oldest man ever to become president. But I'm sure we'll still be getting anti-Trump stories in the press. But maybe he deserves it. I don't know. But it's been a good one. I was really pleased to hear from PK. I'll open the phone lines a little bit more. We've had our experiment with opening the camera, and some people just couldn't handle it. So maybe we'll go back to good old fashioned phone-in. Thank you for joining me. It's been Lessons for Life, and we'll do it all again soon. We were here, and we're gone. Latest.